Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Three Principles Global Community webinar. The Three Principles Global Community, or 3PGC, is a nonprofit organization that's committed to bringing an understanding of the three principles to people throughout the world. Today, we have Erika Bugbee with us. Erika is the founder of Erika Bugbee Global Coaching outside Seattle, Washington. She specializes in teens, young adults, and parents through private video call programs and 4-day face-to-face immersion programs. Erika also works with individuals and couples, trains and mentors practitioners, and is a frequent international webinar and conference presenter. Erika has spent 21 years helping people individually, facilitating workshops and teaching groups that include business leaders, engineers, hospital staff, and the University of Washington Mental Health Center practitioners. As the daughter of George and Linda Pransky, Erika grew up learning the principles and ultimately became a partner at Pransky & Associates, where she worked for 18 years. She co-founded the company's online learning division, creating several online courses that teach the three principles from the ground up. Currently, these courses have reached 32 countries and continue to spread. Erika earned both her bachelor's and master's degree in psychology through University of Oregon and City University, respectively. She lives with her husband of 20 years, their 2 teenagers, and 2 dogs. So Erika, I am so happy that you're able to join us today, and so looking forward to hearing what you have to share.
Hey, thank you. Thanks, Bonnie. Hey, welcome. Thanks you guys for coming. This is sort of a passion of mine, a particular passion. It's my favorite subject to talk about. And a lot of I encourage parents and practitioners. I can see there's a mix of people out there, because a lot of the people that come to these are not the teenagers and young adults themselves, but the support staff. So the people living with them and trying to help them, and oftentimes, like myself, they don't want help. But in my mind, the more understanding there is out there for them, the better. And so I sometimes I think having a little bit of an orientation to teenagers and young adults, as parents, practitioners, we can just talk to them in a way, have a little bit of language that's a little more user friendly. So maybe you guys that are passing this stuff on to them. So one of the reasons that I picked this particular topic for teens and young adults is I hear a lot of young people that feel like there's sort of a race, oftentimes even while they're still in high school, that they have to start figuring their life out and putting together, kind of getting ahead of the competition and building who they're going to be, and so that they can get as far as they can get. That's sort of, and they're sort of running, and I think a lot of young people, what happens is they have all this noise in their head about the right path, the right way to be. So a lot of that noise either comes from them feeling like they have to be a certain way or do things with their lives based on what their parents think, or based on what society thinks, or based on what the people around them think, and that's on their minds, sometimes constantly, or they have a lot of noise in their heads about how they think they should be. They feel like they should be driven and focused, and they should have a plan. They should be working towards a goal, getting ahead of the race. And most of them have absolutely no idea which end is up. So but it doesn't stop the noise. So, and then the other thing I see is a lot of teenagers and young adults have kind of they're looking for a path that does not involve mistakes, regret, failures. That's actually, a lot of adults are that way, are fixated on all of these things, but it's particularly loud to teenagers and young adults because they're at some point adults kind of figure out, I have to do what makes sense to me. I'm going to stay in this relationship even though my friends are telling me to get out because it's right for me. um, Adults kind of find that truth for themselves. Teenagers haven't done that yet, so they feel like uh, they don't want to do something and have it not go well. And especially teenagers spend, I would say, a majority of their time trying to not be embarrassed or look stupid. So they're sort of walking around, sort of trying to manage their lives and figure themselves out in a way that's right. And it creates a huge amount of tension. So I want to talk about, what I'll be talking about is how, first of all, that's always going to be part of the landscape, no matter how old you are. Teenagers are new to it, but that there's another place, that another feeling that we get in where all of that disappears. And I'm gonna talk about that so that people listening can kind of get the eyes for what I'm talking about and look for that. And you get more of that as you understand it more. But to do that, I'll tell a story that came to mind the other day when I was in college. I just graduated college and I was moving to another city. And I had this little station wagon, and a few hours after my last final, I had to be out of my apartment and completely checked out and have it be really clean. And I didn't really think ahead because I was the procrastinating type, and I was really into having fun. So I kind of partied as much as I could and then did as much academics as I had to. And what I found is that all of a sudden I'm in this frenzy to check out of my apartment, and then all my stuff's on the curb. And so I had to get everything in my car, and I had a schedule to keep that day. And so it was so funny because I'm packing my car in this frenzy, and I get to, my car is full and half my stuff is on the curb. And I hadn't really thought about space. I just figured I'll just put everything in my car, but I'd never put everything in my car. And as a senior, I'd collected more and more stuff. So everything fit my first year. So it was so funny because I sort of packed the car, and I got my dog in there, and I'm looking at all this stuff on the curb, and I thought, well, I don't know what I'm going to do with this. So I thought, well, I grabbed a few things, but I just decided I'm just going to leave it and somebody will take it. And I was used to seeing people's stuff on the curb outside of apartments. So I thought, I guess that's why you see people's stuff out on the curb. I'm going to be one of those people. And so I get in the car and I'm driving, and I'm thinking about what I left on the curb. And what's so funny is I realized in my frenzy, I had, I'd left behind my vacuum cleaner, my laundry hamper, all of my lamps, and my nightstand. And in my car, taking up all of that space was this giant, it was deflated, but I had this 6-foot Godzilla somebody had given me that I don't know, somehow made it through high school and college with me. And it was big. It's not 6 feet, but it was big. That's in there. I had an empty keg that was in my apartment when I moved in, and we used it as a a side table next to the couch. I had empty crates that were in there that were like storage crates. I hadn't even put stuff in them. So here I'd left things that I realized, yeah, I wish I had those. And it was too late to drive back, but it set me into this, oh, why would I do that? And I got into this conflict. Should I drive back? It's an hour. And it set me into this tailspin of, what am I doing? Like, what a stupid thing to do. And like, I'm supposed to go off into life. I don't have any, like, I'm an idiot. I'm a complete idiot. And here I am going to run a life and no one's watching anymore. It's kind of on me. And I'm so flaky and impulsive. I'm all over the place. And I started thinking about what I was doing next. And I started doubting that. I thought, I don't even know what I'm doing. I'm driving to this city to move there. I don't even know. I don't have a job. I don't have a plan. Like, I thought I'd have it together by now. And I thought, how's this going to work? And how am I fit for life? And then I started thinking about my roommate, Tanya, who I came home a few weeks before, and she had boxes and was starting to pack. And it's like a month before school got out. And I'd never seen it. I'd never known anybody in my world that planned ahead anything. So I was kind of like, oh, she's packing now. What about, don't you need that stuff? And I realized, oh, Tanya's so organized. Like, that's how you're supposed to be. I missed that when they handed that out. And she had her major picked out freshman year. Now she has a job and an internship and a boyfriend. And I was thinking about everything. In fact, I was looking at my dog, who was like, gets nervous and pukes in the car. And I thought, even my dog's a mess. She's so hyper. And Tanya's dog is like trained. I just got all of this sort of doubt and insecurity that was really sort of crippling. And I spent, I think, 2 of that 4-hour drive in that state. It's almost like, just felt horrible. Here's what was interesting is, so then I spent the next 2 hours sort of tuning it out and listening to rap, whatever I was listening to in the car. And I'm unpacking my car that night, and I'm moving everything in, and my head started to clear, and I started thinking, I have my dog, and I've got this place that takes dogs. It's really hard to find a place that takes dogs, and there was all this space. It was way more space than what I had when I lived in an apartment, and I started kind of appreciating what I had. And I thought, I love my dog. She's hyper, and she's completely untrained, but she's so excited. Everything you do, she's excited. And I thought, I don't want Tanya's dog. I like this dog. Like, Tanya's dog isn't as excited when you get home. And that, and I like that I'm spontaneous. Yeah, I'm all over the place, but I packed the most amount of fun into that last month that I possibly could. And I just started feeling sort of different about myself. And it was interesting is I thought, well, I don't have to know what I'm doing here. If I move here and it doesn't work, I'll just move someplace else. And why can't life just be the way that travel is, that you just kind of show up and see what happens? Why do you have to plan it out? I value that kind of travel. What was interesting is that the way I saw myself and the way I saw my future and my plan changed from being, what's wrong with me, and having all this noise about it, feeling really uncertain and unsure and unfit, to having exactly the same dog. I'm the same person with the same qualities, the same plan or lack of plan, and feeling great about it. And my life was exactly the same. But it happened in the span of, half of a day. My outlook completely changed. And what I thought was so interesting when I was preparing for this talk is that my confidence in life was way down in the car, and I'm packing, and my confidence, and I'm unpacking my car that night. And all of a sudden, not only do I feel great and have zero insecurity about myself and my character, I have zero doubts, but I feel like this is a great plan. And I had no idea what I was going to do the next day. I didn't have a job. I had no idea what I was doing after that move. I just picked a city because I knew I had to leave my apartment. And I didn't have anything worked out. And yet I was excited about it. Essentially, my confidence took the form of enthusiasm and intrigue. And that moment did something for me, because I didn't really appreciate it at the time, but I realized that you can have no idea what you're doing and have the least amount of experience putting a life together, your first sort of jumping off point, and feel great about it, even though you have none of it figured out. that's possible. Not only is that possible for us, but we do that all the time. We go to we 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 do things spontaneously, and we don't doesn't have to matter to us whether it works out. And that's a place that we come from about life. And so essentially what happens is that part of life involves having, in a way, there's, while you're driving your car and packing your car and unpacking your car and doing whatever you're doing today, you're also, this sideshow is happening where you're having a mood state, or you're having an emotional life or a mental life, whatever you want to call it. There's another life happening in here, and it's ebbing and flowing. So we call that thought. So or a mood state, if you look at sort of the trend of what thought does, that while you're going through life, you feel like things are going pretty well, I've got a nice life. And then an hour later, same life, you feel like, oh, this life, things suck. I'm going to fail this test. And then an hour after that, you're like, I think I'll do pretty well. You're while you're having life, there's this parallel universe where your mind is going up and down. And it's taking essentially your reality and your outlook and your confidence about life with it. So, and it was, for me, that example, the packing my car and unpacking was the perfect demonstration of that, because I was just doing these activities. There's this sort of force that happens all by itself. That what I want to highlight here is that I was a complete mess packing my car. I was in a frenzy. And then I was really down on myself and down on life and discouraged and freaked out. And without doing anything, I stabilized. And that's something we do every single day. And we in fact, we count on that ebb and flow. So if you get in a fight with a friend or a roommate or a sibling, you'll feel hostile toward them, and they'll look like a bad person to you, and they'll look like the bad guy, and it'll look like this friendship is over. Like, I don't know how we untangle this. This is it. This is like, this issue runs so deep. And then you'll calm down a little bit, or you'll eat something, or you'll get some space and go hang out with somebody else, and then all of a sudden you'll calm down and you'll feel like, oh, we were just both, we're both tense. It's finals week. Yeah, I was hungry, and maybe I was kind of edgy, and you'll see some understanding about what happens. The perspective will come in, and you'll see, well, it was just a fight. It's not the end of the friendship, and it's not the tip of an iceberg, and they're not a bad person. I'm not a bad person. So we understand that, which is why we get in a fight and then we hang up the phone and go the other way and get away from things, because there's some sense that when things get really tense, you step away for a moment and things settle down. And so we're essentially have some sense of how to roll with this technology we have to create a sort of ever-changing experience of life that goes from tense and this is a mess to stepping away from it, collecting yourself, letting things calm down, and then taking a fresh look. There's something that stabilizes us. There's an intelligence behind life that we count on to, when we get angry or upset or mad at someone, that with a little bit of time, it naturally settles down. And what I want to point out here is that this is what happens to our confidence. what happens to what happened to me in that leaving University of Oregon and packing the car, and was that I was I looked like somebody that was unfit. I looked like my dog was unfit. She got pulled into the plot. Sketchy was her name, and I looked like my future was unsure and probably not going to work, and I looked like sort of I hadn't uh, gotten where I needed to be in life. That I was sort of there was something wrong with me. Tanya was intact, my roommate, and I was missing like a major part. And then a few hours later, my whole experience of myself changed, and my life and everything I looked at looked different. And what I think is so interesting here is that my confidence, like I said earlier, my confidence disappeared and then it came back. And then essentially that's what happened with my sense that my life was going to work out. And they both felt real. So I'm a wreck. I don't know what to do next. I don't know where I'm going, or I don't have a plan. That looked real. And when it looked like, no, I'm doing pretty good. I like that I'm spontaneous. And I don't have to know what's after this. Like just having this step's plenty. I'll just enjoy this step. And then when it's time for another step, I'll know it and I'll make another step. That plan, the lack of plan, looked like a completely respectable way of life. So that's the trick of the mind, is that you have your version. You have your moments where you look like a wreck, and you are a wreck. Certain times where when we're not doing well, and then we're forced to sort of perform anyway at work or in a fight with somebody or packing your car in a frenzy, all of your weaknesses come out. That's true. But your outlook about that, whether it's okay to have weaknesses or to not be great at packing or planning, that can look like a big deal or not. So there's parts of you, when you look at yourself, you're going to feel down on yourself and like you're unfit. And you're going to look at your life, and your life is going to look like you haven't figured anything out and it's not going to work out. And that's going to look true. Doesn't mean that it is true, but it's going to look true. And it's also going to look true that when your mind settles down, your outlook about the mistakes you've made in the past or bad things that have happened, your feeling about the future, you're going to feel excited. You're going to feel forgiveness over things that have happened. You'll feel good about the person that you are, confident. Usually that means you're just not thinking about yourself. You're just involved in life. You'll feel the areas where you don't have them figured out. You'll be the one saying, well, I'll figure that out. Mom, would you stop worrying? I'll figure it out. So your confidence comes and goes. So there's a difference here that I want to highlight for people between feeling like a lack of confidence and means there's something wrong with you or something wrong with life, that your life's not going to work out or there's something wrong with you. I'm suggesting that confidence is an inside job. It's just the noise that your mind makes when it gets insecure. And if your mind is insecure and it looks at your future, it's going to look like, what the hell am I doing? Like, this is not going to work. It's going to work badly. That's what insecurity does. That same mind, when it's settled, when it looks at the future, will see possibilities. And, well, if we get to the restaurant and we haven't made reservations, and we'll go someplace else. Like, when we're calm and we look at the future, it looks like it's going to work out. That's what I love about teenagers, is a lot of times you have all this confidence and then you get there and you realize, oh, there are no other restaurants open. You can often have confidence in it within your own mind, even though things aren't going to work out. So they're completely independent of each other. Your mind is, and the benefit of knowing that is that when you lose your confidence and you feel like you have to have everything figured out, I'm suggesting that should make you a little bit suspicious that you're just in a state of insecurity, that it's a thought problem you're having, not a life problem, not a character problem in you. Just like I know when I'm down on my dog and I think she's not worth the hassle, and there was a lot of hassle, that dog had a lot of baggage, it was a shelter dog, but when I would get intolerant of her, I was crabby, and I knew that. I never posted her on Craigslist. Like, I wasn't going to get rid of her, even if I got mad at her. But that's the difference is there's some way in which we do understand this about life. And so I'm suggesting that where confidence is concerned, when you look out at life, because of the way that thought works in such a way that life looks like a photograph when actually it's a painting. So you're seeing life through the lens of your mood. And when your confidence disappears, it's because your mood is low. If you look inside, you'll see, and I'll take my word for it. You look inside, you'll see, I'm insecure and I'm questioning everything. And that will be your first clue. Maybe I'm just unsettled and freaked out and I need to get a good night's sleep. And so there's something in this, so it looks real and it self-corrects. And one of the things I think is interesting is if you look at people, one of the ways that your mind levels out and where we get buoyancy happens to be when we're busy and engaged in life. So there's, so I moved cities, and I'm living in this new city, and I thought, well, I've been here for a year. I got a job as a waitress. Thought I'd take a gap year, and I thought I'm going to move back to where I went to school, and I'm going to go to graduate school there. And what was interesting is I get to that town, I move back, I'm all excited. Took a while for school to start, so I'm like, well, I got to settle in here, and wasn't quite settled. And but I started working again as a waitress, and as I got busy, I realized I don't like it here. I don't want to be here. I want to be someplace that I haven't been to before. All my party friends are calling me. I'm not really in that mode. This just doesn't feel right to me. And what was interesting is that thought, which kind of would freak me out at night, I would go to work, and while I was working, my mind would get more lucid, and I would start seeing start having thoughts about what else I should do. And at night, I would think, God, I'm impulsive. I moved here, and that was a mistake. Why that cost me? There's all this money. How am I going to get out of this lease? Should I move? What if leaving is being impulsive? And then I go to work, and trying to forget on purpose. I'm not thinking about my life because I'm at work. I'm getting paid to think about work and not my life. But while I'm not thinking about my life, my head would clear. And then I'd start having realizations of, like, I heard two people talking about the San Juan Islands, which is where I had been living and where I grew up that's up here in La Conner. And I thought, maybe I'll go back up there. like, maybe I'll go back up there and stay up there. Maybe I won't float around. And I started having new thought about a next step, which was interesting to me because I was at night, I would spend all my time thinking, what am I going to do? What am I going to do? What am I going to do? And as soon as my head would clear and I'm trying not to think about what I'm going to do, I would have answers and essentially guidance. Sort of a navigation system came to me, which is a lot of times how I hear my client I talked to this morning said, she was in a fight with her boyfriend who her parents had been telling her to leave and her friends had been telling her to leave. And she's like, well, I like having this, he's kind of a project and it's good for me. And I feel better about myself because he's kind of a mess and I like being the healthier one. And she's in a fight with him and her head clears all of a sudden. She's like, what am I doing? What am I doing with this? I used to like the drama because it distracted me, but I'm kind of tired of it. And she had the realization to leave him while they were in a fight. She said it was really funny. It wasn't the impulsive, dramatic, I'm out of here. It was just a very quiet moment of clarity. And she ended the relationship within a few days. And she said that came to me in the strangest of times. It's not like I was, on a walk or out in nature. It was in the middle of a fight. So your mind provides you guidance about mistakes, about course corrections, about next steps. When I was in the car, I got guidance about, I got a peace of mind about myself and my dog and my life and my future. So your mind is providing you sort of guidance anyway, just sort of built into all of us. In our work, we call that mind, universal mind. So there's some intelligence running all of nature, and it provides us, hey, it's time to break up with this guy. Hey, you got to start thinking about a next step after school ends. Or you get guidance from that. And as it happens, the times that our heads are clear and we're just immersed in life, we're just specifically not thinking about life. We've thrown ourselves into our job, your sport, whatever it is that you do where your head clears. You end up getting more moments, a lot of your moments of guidance come through those moments. So if you've looked back at your life and you see kind of defining moments happen, or new thought or insight, like I would always, if I had to write a paper and I didn't know how to end it and I'm sitting there and nothing's coming, I knew if I went and did anything, it would come to me. So I'd be grocery shopping and I'd get an idea off of like a magazine rack, or I'd overhear a conversation. So it just so happens that for people who are trying to figure out a next step, immersing yourself in life allows your mind to settle down enough to where you'll get new thought and your confidence about yourself will come back. Your sense of direction will come back. You just get essentially a more clear, the more settled down and calm your mind is, the more clear your signal. You're on a more clear channel to have a fresh set of eyes and look at your life and see what makes sense. We're just built that way. That if your mind, to the degree that your mind is free, you show up to, I got to figure out a next step. And your mind will start generating ideas and possibilities. And that, in the same way that if you have a friend that comes to you and they're, a friend that's in crisis, like I have to move out of my apartment, or I got to get away from my parents, I got to get out of this relationship. You look at that and you just spend 2 minutes thinking about their dilemma and you'll see, well, you could do this. You'll see 5 options. And they're all perfectly engineered for that friend's life. When your mind is free and you look at your life, you'll see 5 options. And I'm suggesting it doesn't really matter what option you pick, because when you get there, if it doesn't work, from there you'll look out and you'll see 5 more options. And the only thing that makes it a little tricky is your mood state is in there messing with things, cooking up like, oh, there could be these horrible options. You know, here's 5 worst case scenarios for those 5 options. Like, there's kind of another cook in the kitchen that comes in and will torment you to X degree from the sidelines while you're living your life. But as that clears and your mind frees up a little bit, and you get out of the noise and immerse yourself in life, you'll find that some signal comes through anyway. And then that is something I'm saying that you can count on. You don't have to have you don't have to have the rest of your life planned. As it turns out, you can be the way it works out for the rest of us, for all the adults on this call, is that we think we have things figured out. You get to the next step and all of a sudden the step after that doesn't look so great, or all of a sudden you don't really like that path. The way it ends up working out is you get from here, you look at options, you get on, you pick one of them, you get there, and then you see what makes sense from there. Your mind has the ability to kind of to start from scratch, from wherever you are, and make a set of plans, and then you pick one. That's that's really how the system works. There isn't such thing as a right plan. It's a plan that's right. There isn't such thing as one that avoids mistakes and regret and failures. It doesn't really work that way. Whatever plan you get on, you just settle into that one, and that becomes the path that works. If it doesn't work, you make adjustments and you find one that's a better fit. It's only when we get insecure and have a bunch of noise in our heads and get into a feeling of doubt or a mood of doubt that it looks like there's a right and a wrong plan. Let me stop and see if there's questions people have, or comments or observations.
Yeah, we have a few questions already for you.
Great.
Yeah, so Kinneret, I'm going to unmute you.
Hello.
Hey, nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you. I really enjoyed your session. Got a lot out of it. Thank you.
Great.
I think I have 2 questions, but I'll start with one.
Okay.
So I still find it challenging. I have a challenging stepmom
Mm-hmm.
who is so good at finding, when I'm at my lowest mood,
Mm-hmm.
the most vulnerable, and when I don't have my shit together. And she's great. So she's great at coming out of nowhere and using language that some people would call shaming,
Mm-hmm.
or blaming.
Right.
And so I've had a reaction to that. It happens when I'm at my lowest of the, when I don't have capacity to hear it.
Right.
And then I just hang up on her.
Right.
At first, I just hang up. So any suggestions? I really would love to be more resilient, or any suggestions would be welcome.
Well, I loved your question because it iterates the point I want to make that I talked about earlier, that there's really no right path or wrong path, that our lives are sort of a patchwork of social skills are required to handle the people in our lives, and you're never prepared for any of them. And a lot of times you find yourself doing things you would never otherwise do. And sometimes it's because you were just, that was all you could do, is hang up on somebody. And sometimes we find, you know what, that works for me, or that works for them. That's better. That's a better dynamic than if I'd let it continue. And a lot of times people find they have so many rules that don't account for what happens in life, that you want to be able to consider it literally anything. And because sometimes we get to a point where we just don't, if we're not, because moods are built into life, you don't get to have an upswing when you need one. You have to learn how to have a downswing and to be already not handling things well, and then have social skills required of you. And you have to just pick from the ones that you come up with at the time, which is hanging up and or getting agitated and not being able to see out of it. It's, in a way, it's not, it doesn't mean anything about us that when we're not doing well, we don't handle things well. It's because the system is not ours to control and manipulate. We're really just, what we're doing on these webinars is explaining, hey, there's this, you have a whole mental life happening in here while you're going through life, and it messes with your perceptions, and it messes with what you feel about yourself and other people, and like it's tied into your senses. Like, it really throws people. So it's understandable that people lose their bearings, and on the spot they can't get it back. And you want to be able to have that be okay, that you get that way. And at some point we get to where we're not as rattled by other people doing that, because we see, if it's our friends, we see, well, they get that way, I'm not going to pay too much attention to them. And you might have a change in your perspective about her. Not that it's required of you, but there's a way in which, at the very least, you want to be able to let yourself off the hook, that sometimes you're resilient, sometimes you're not. And the one thing that'll keep you from having that be okay is feeling pressure and judgment that you're not more resilient. In the same way that was my realization about myself. It's like, yeah, it probably would have been better to start packing before, noon that day. And it probably would have been better to think things through. And yeah, my life would have been easier. But what happened when all of the dust settled is I thought, well, there's upsides to being spontaneous. Like, I had a really good time compared to my more serious friends in college that now have jobs. But I'll hunker down. And I did. I shifted gears and I got way more serious about life. And figured, well, I had all my fun in college, so now it's time to hunker down. Like, that system worked for me. And that's the truth, is that we're not going to be perfect. And that we're okay with having our weaknesses and having our ups and downs, and having our mood state not cooperate with the challenges we face in life. That you want to be okay with being human and having your shortcomings. And that was the reality I saw about myself. It's not that I figured out how to get out from under that, but I just realized, well, that's how I am until I can see to be different. And that's where your resilience will come from, is ultimately feeling fine about the fact that you're like that. And maybe you could handle it better if she didn't get to you so much, but you can't see how to see that now. That's how I feel about my clients. I think if we look out at our friends and the people that we really know well and appreciate, they're not perfect, and we're fine with that. If they came to us and said, oh man, I really wish I could be more mature about how I handle this difficult person, we'd be like, all right, well, so it wouldn't really be it wouldn't reflect badly on our friends. And I think you want to be able to find, look for more peace of mind about how you are, rather than, and know you'll be more or less accepting of yourself and comfortable with your weaknesses, depending on how your mood state is in that moment. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Oh, good. Thank you.
Thank
Thanks for your question.
Tom, you are up next. Let's see.
Hello. Hi, Erika.
Hey.
Hey, I'm just really thrilled to meet you live. I'm one of those people maybe you referred to earlier who watched some of your earlier videos 4 or 5 times.
Great.
And
You're not sick of
but
me yet.
no. In fact, about a year ago, had been going through this like 3-month period where I was really in a lot of depression
Mm.
and thinking like, well, I'm never going to get out of this, and it's so horrible. And your videos were actually really helpful.
Oh, fantastic.
And especially when you talked about kind of like, and I was just learning the principles, and one of the things you were talking about was the fact that you can't sort of use the principles to get out of the ups and downs, that they're going to happen, but if you understand them,
Mm-hmm.
that can be helpful. And
Right.
something you just said today was really kind of like an insight in that. So like over the past year, I really have seen a lot about my own resiliency. Like I go up and down every day so many times, and I know I can really count on coming back up.
Mm-hmm.
Like I just see it all the time. And the fact that I still go down doesn't mean anything like it used to. But one of the things you said, kind of how it relates to other people, like one of the things for me, like if I get into something with like a friend or someone who I'm in a relationship with, and like for some reason I think they're upset with me, that can spur on a lot of thinking, for me. And especially when I think, maybe that it's a little unfair, or I'm not really being understood or something. I can really, really kind of get into that. But something that just happened as you were talking was, I think I realized that, their mood's going to go up and down too, and they're going to clear and they're going to feel better, even if they don't know anything about the principles.
Right.
Like, and I've seen it so many times in my life with all of my friends and family members. Like, you could have like a conflict or something, and the next time you see them, you don't know if they're going to be mad at you or they're going to forget it, or like you just don't know. But there's something about what you said is like I can count on they're not going to be in a fixed state. I don't necessarily have to solve the problem I think they're having with me in my head. Do you know what I'm saying? And I
It's not
still,
a solid thing, right?
yeah. And
Yeah.
yet I still, in the next minute, may go back to trying to solve it. And I know I'm going to feel better, but now there's something about what you said that I can kind of count on they're going to feel better too.
Right.
So
Right.
that was very helpful.
Exactly. Oh, that's fantastic. Just like you can count on life looking different because everything's shifting all the time in the way, and that's true of the social landscape, is it's like it's a moving target. So there's your outlook and then there's what's happening there. So just like life is changing and the opportunities that present and things that are in the cards and aren't in the cards, other people the social landscape is shifting constantly too.
Mm-hmm.
And there's something reassuring, isn't there, about, well, I don't know what this looks like to them. I don't know what this will look like tomorrow. Kind of takes the pressure off enough to kind of let things breathe, because you don't really know what you're dealing with when it comes to thought. And that allows your head to clear faster. It's amazing. It's just a little bit of understanding that thought that we're dealing with a changing landscape really gives us permission to kind of put it on the back burner instead of having it like, stuck on the front of your face. And it just so happens that that's the best medicine to sort of giving things a chance to calm down. And then you come back and you're like, there's nothing really even to talk about.
Right.
It's so funny. And if there is something to deal with or talk about, then you have the benefit of having some fresh outlook and your mind calm down and some perspective to have infused into the picture that just is this amazing part of the technology that you get, like they say, hindsight's 20/20, is even if they're exactly the same or they've been festering and they're worse, you come at it with some perspective that you didn't have an hour ago or the day before. It's really is something so comforting about the fact that other people are, there's a reasonable side of them, and maybe they've gotten more in it. Their outlook changes. Maybe they were just crabby. It invites in it requires us to kind of be open to things in a way we wouldn't otherwise be. Oh, that's great. Good. Thank
Yeah.
you.
Thank you, Erika. Thank you so
Yeah.
much for everything you do.
Yeah,
I
good.
appreciate it.
And Melissa. Melissa, I'm having a hard time unmuting you. Can you try to unmute yourself? Well, you know what? We're going to go to Felicity, and then we'll come back to you, Melissa, and see if we can unmute you. Okay, maybe it's me because, oops. Are we battling the unmute button, Felicity? Okay.
Yes, right.
We're going back and forth.
Okay. Okay, hello. Hi, Erika.
Hey there.
Yes, I'm one of those that watches your videos as well over and over.
Great.
And yes, thank you very much for taking my question. So I just wanted to see what your thoughts are about this. It's about a relationship that I have with my grandson, who I'm his carer, I'm his legal guardian with.
Right.
So he seems to have a problem with learning, with structure, formal learning.
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise, he's a very happy child.
Mm-hmm.
He bounces back, he likes sports, but he had like a lot of professional intervention because of his difficulty with learning since he's very, very young.
Mm-hmm.
And I find it very difficult to, because he has never has been diagnosed as a specific learning disability or learning need. We really seems to assume that there is one.
Mm-hmm.
He doesn't engage very well with the learning part of the school. So he likes to go to school, socialize, everything, but his engagement with formal learning is very not happening, really.
Right.
So during this lockdown period, it has been really difficult for both of us.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Yeah, because we had piles and piles of work from school, and he would not engage. And I'm in a constant state of doubt of what to do and how to help him and there's a part of me that desperately wants to change him. And I tell him, this is your attitude.
Right.
You can do it. I'm sure that you can do it. But it's so stressful every time that we want to engage with that I don't know, sometimes I give up, sometimes we go through arguments and we do a little bit, but I'm just feel very doubtful and quite lost, really.
Mm-hmm,
He is 14. He is 14, so it's a
okay. I was going to ask. Yeah,
it's a crucial time because this coming school term here in the UK, he will start GCSEs with, I think it might be equivalent to a high school in there, 14.
Right.
So it's quite important. And I'm so worried about him to sort of live in school with no qualifications or no skills. I mean,
right.
Yeah, there is a lot of intervention, but nothing seems to move any direction.
Well, that's just good, because I'll speak to this in the context of this, the confidence part of it, from your standpoint. It's because that's what will help you most. Is it?
Yeah.
There's all of us when we were younger had our weaknesses handling life, either the social part of it or the learning part of it or the getting along with parents or handling, you know, uncertainty. There are just certain ways. And frankly, we're all like that still. We're not that much more refined in life than we were as teenagers. That's why I love teenagers, because they're just sort of a more honest version of people. And but we all found our ways of navigating it. And it was messy. And maybe it was difficult. Maybe there's a lot of tears involved, a lot of tension, or, you know, just, you know, shaming themselves or feeling embarrassed or down on themselves or worried about life. But bottom line, we pop out the other side and you figure out how to have a relationship with life anyway, such as you are.
Yeah.
And that's going to be his story. And the more comfortable you are with the messiness and that he's just maybe a more extreme version of you, the way you were and the way I was, it puts your mind at ease that, well, we're all kind of messed up. And we seem to be able to get through fine. Like I left my most important things, a bunch of them on the University of Oregon on that curb. And for me, learning about time and planning, that didn't really happen for me till I was like in my 30s. I think my late 30s, I figured out that I shouldn't leave exactly the amount of time to get to the office as it takes. I realized, well, I should add 15%. So I was rushed, and I had, so you have your ways in which you're not quite, things don't come easy to you because of the way that your mind works. And he has his, and he will work that out with life. And it's not on you to do it. You do it to whatever degree you can. So in a way, you sort of, you know, you're like teachers. I always, you know, if you think about teachers, well, they have these kids for a year or a few years. And some of them see, oh, maybe I can make a difference here with this kid, and they'll pull them aside here, spend a little extra time. They figure, well, no, just, you know, then they're off in the world. And that either made a difference or it didn't. And for us, there were certain teachers and people that really left a mark on us in a good way. And maybe you'll be one of those people as a parent, a grandparent, and maybe you won't. Maybe they're going to have to learn it elsewhere. But you just do what you can in the time that you have. But you're just part of the staff. You're not even the main part. You're not like management, really. You're more just a worker, because the management part of raising your kid is this intelligence behind life. That's where they're getting their answers. That's how they're thinking about things, is based on what makes sense to them. You're like a consultant. You give suggestions, but he's probably not listening to you all that much.
No.
And I didn't listen to my parents. I had great parents, super smart people. I had zero interest in what they had to say. A few times I'd reach out for help in specific ways, and they were helpful. And a few things really helped me having them in my life. But mostly I was making my own decisions based on what made sense to me. And that's how you did it.
Yeah.
So you're like supplemental. You're just there for, you know, to hug him. And if you have ideas, great. And to love him. And in my mind, that was kind of what I saw about myself is, well, I'm not perfect, but I'm fine. You want to see that about your son, is it's the truth and it's honest. And if you can't see what else to do, just like I couldn't see, I'm not better about time, now what am I going to do? Then you just move on. And that's, so the pressure is really just your mind when it gets low and you feel like you're responsible for fixing this kid. That's just, that's a trick of the mind. And when you come back up and you get your resilience back, you'll just love him such as he is, and you'll see his strengths, and you'll see there's nothing to be done with him, and your confidence in him will come back.
Great.
Does that make sense?
That makes a lot of sense. Thank you so much.
Well, I'm glad you asked it, because it does, it can feel really like, oh, I got to get this kid where he's got to be by the deadline.
Yeah. Yes.
And it so doesn't work that way. A
Mm.
lot of people are either they just go the drug addict route, or they don't care about working, or they have a chip on their shoulder, or they're resentful, or they're just, you know, and then all of a sudden they wake up in their 40s and no
Yeah.
one could have woken them up. A lot of my clients would say that.
Yeah.
And they say, "Look, no, everybody tried to, you know, they intervene and nobody could. I had to find my answer on my own." So we're all on different schedules. Don't worry
Yeah.
about it.
Thank you so much, Erika.
Yeah.
That was
Well,
really helpful.
good. Oh, you're
And I
welcome.
can see, I can look at my own life and see that that is true.
Absolutely. And I
Yeah.
think everybody could see that. You just have
Yes.
to get back in touch with that.
Great. Thank you.
Good.
Thank you.
Great. I'll say one last thing. You know, when I had a client here for a 4-day, I do 4-day programs, and her mom sat in on one of the sessions that I had with the daughter. And it was so funny. The mom had all these insights during that session. And she said, you know, maybe I'll do some sessions with you. This is magical. And she said, you know, I think what happened is I was paying you to help my daughter during these 4 days. So I relaxed because you told me I'm supposed to come here and relax. And, you know, because for these 4 days, I don't have to mom. I'm not momming for 4 days. I'm just a woman walking around the corner. And she said, I just felt fantastic. And all of a sudden I was connected to my common sense and my wisdom, and everything that came out of your mouth sounded like, you know, it was like meant for my ears. And she said, I think for the first time I've actually just settled down enough to hear anything besides my fear, because she was paying me. So in a sense, the more calm you get and the more obligated, you know, and the less obligated you feel to fix him, you probably get much better guidance up there.
Yeah.
So at any rate, just for everybody out there listening,
Yes.
You love your kid and you'll probably provide better guidance from that realm.
That's really nice. Thank you so much, Erika.
Yeah, well, thanks everybody
Thank you.
for showing up, and for everybody else that listens to this in the recording. Hope this has been helpful. And Bonnie, thank you for doing the admin on these things and setting this up.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thanks so much for coming on and doing another talk with us. It's always great to hear what you have to share. Really appreciate it.
Great.
And just to let everybody know, the next webinar is Tuesday, July 14th, same time with Brock Sellers. So hope you can join us live then.
Fantastic.
Great. Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks a lot, you guys. Thanks for coming. Nice meeting everybody.
Nice meeting you.